Well, one of the most common complaints that has come out of the Black Lives Matter movement is that people of color are treated differently, often more violently by police. Well, tonight we have some hard numbers that show those complaints may have merit with the state's largest police department. Our chief investigative reporter Morgan Lowe is live with the story tonight. Morgan?
We analyzed about 10,000 incidents where Phoenix police used force during an encounter with a suspect or a subject. And that analysis showed us that African Americans accounted for a disproportionately high number of violent encounters with police. Chanting and marching filled our streets for the better part of 3 weeks. Much of the anger was directed toward the Phoenix Police Department and accusations that black men in particular were more likely to be treated suspiciously or harshly than white men.
Oh, look at these kids.
Incidents like this one last summer have bolstered criticism of police. Here, members of a black family were arrested with force for allegedly shoplifting. But we have not known how often Phoenix police use force and against whom until now. CBS 5 Investigates analyzed nearly 10,000 incidents where Phoenix officers use hands, fists, chokeholds, batons, and firearms. We compared the ethnicity of the people involved to their share of the city's population. Between 2010 and 2015, 43% of Phoenix's population was white, but white people accounted for only 36% of the use of force cases. Just under 43% of the population was Hispanic. They were involved in 37% of the cases. Blacks made up under 7% of the population, but accounted for 18% of the use of force cases. Then in 2019, the use of force cases against black people increased to nearly 20%. So while white and Hispanic people are less likely to be involved in use of force cases based on their share of the population, blacks are much more likely to be involved.
We're not surprised by the data, but it numerically validates everything that we've been saying as being a problem with policing here in the Valley.
Roy Tatum is the president of East Valley NAACP. He says he does believe change is coming to the way police handle race and bias, but he believes changing policy is just the first step. Changing the culture will be a heavier lift.
First and foremost, we need to admit that there is a problem in racism, a systemic racial problem as it relates to policing.
Now, Phoenix police point out that last year alone, they responded to 600,000 crime calls. And when you add that and compare that to the 6 years that we looked at, we're talking about millions of calls that they responded to. So these use of force calls are a tiny fraction of their total calls. But they also say that it might be more accurate for us to compare these use of force calls to their total number of crime calls. And so they gave us some information today, and we did that, and those numbers do track a lot more closely. For example, African Americans were involved in 20% of the crime calls last year. They were also involved in, as we reported, 20% of the use of force calls. That tracks a little more closely there. I'm going to send it back to you.
Yeah, a lot of numbers to peel back those layers. Morgan Lowe, thanks for that report tonight.